The bell above the door jingled as a man walked in. His face was hidden under an old, worn-out cap, and a scruffy beard covered his jaw. His eyes, sharp and knowing, peeked out from behind thick glasses. No one in the shop knew his secret. To the world he was just another drifter, a nobody passing through. But under the disguise, his heart pounded with purpose. He wasn't just any man. He was Keanu Reeves, the big boss of Beanhaven Coffee, the man who had built the company from one small cafe into a chain of 15 stores. And right now he was on a mission. 4 years, Keanu had worked in offices and boardrooms, reading reports and talking to managers about how his business was doing. But lately something felt off. Sales were dropping. Workers were quitting. And worst of all, kindness had disappeared. Customers complained about rude service. Employees said their managers didn't care. And no matter how many times the higher-ups told him things were fine, Keanu didn't believe them. So he decided to see for himself. No fancy suit. No big CEO title. Just Mark, a regular guy stepping into one of his own coffee shops to find out the truth. The air smelled of coffee, warm and rich. The sound of cups clinking and soft chatter filled the shop. At first glance, everything seemed normal. But Keanu could feel it. Something wasn't right. Behind the counter, the workers moved slowly. They weren't busy, they just seemed bored. One young cashier, a girl in her early 20s, looked nervous. She fumbled with the register, her hands shaking slightly. The other employees? They stood around, chatting, barely helping her. Keanu's eyes moved to a woman standing off to the side. She wore a manager's name tag, Vanessa. But instead of working, she was staring at her phone, scrolling with a blank look. His jaw tightened. This was Vanessa, the woman his regional managers had praised as an efficient leader. This is what they call efficient? Keanu thought. He stepped forward, pretending to be just another customer. Then the door creaked open again. Keanu turned his head. A man stepped inside. His clothes were old and stained. He clutched a plastic bag in both hands, like it held something precious. His face was lined with exhaustion, his eyes full of quiet pain. The man hesitated, looking around. Keanu could tell he didn't know if he was welcome here. And then, Vanessa snapped to attention. Her face twisted in disgust. Her eyes locked onto the man like a predator spotting prey. She marched forward, fast and angry. "Hey, get out." The man flinched. His fingers tightened around his plastic bag. I just want some water," he said softly. "I won't bother anyone." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "I said no," she snapped. "This isn't a place for handouts. Get out before I call the cops." The words hit Keanu like a punch. The man's shoulders slumped. Defeat etched itself into his face. "Sorry," he whispered, turning away. His plastic bag rustled softly as he stepped toward the door. Keanu felt heat rise in his chest. This wasn't just wrong, it was cruel. He couldn't stay silent. "Wait." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. Vanessa whipped her head around, glaring. "This isn't your problem," she snapped. Keanu ignored her. He turned to the man. "You just want water, right?" The man nodded, hope flickering in his tired eyes. "I'll leave after, I swear." Keanu turned back to Vanessa. "It's just water. Why can't he have a cup?" Vanessa rolled her eyes. "We're not a charity. People like him scare away paying customers." Her voice dripped with disdain. Keanu's stomach twisted. He took a slow breath. "I'll pay for it." Vanessa huffed. "Fine. Whatever. Your money." Keanu handed the man a cup of water. "Take your time," he said gently. "You're not bothering anyone." The man nodded. His eyes shone with quiet gratitude. He shuffled to a corner table, sitting down carefully. Keanu turned back to the counter. Vanessa had already gone back to her phone, muttering. The young cashier shot Keanu a nervous glance, part thankful, part worried. When it was his turn, Keanu ordered a black coffee. He took a sip. The coffee was bitter, and so was the feeling in his gut. Something was deeply wrong in this shop. The next morning, Keanu was back. His cap pulled low, his fake beard itching, and his resolve sharper than ever. He needed to see more. He needed to go deeper. So today, he wasn't just a customer. He was going to work behind the counter. He walked up to Vanessa, pretending to be shy. "Hi, I'm Mark," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm supposed to start today." Vanessa barely looked at him. "We're busy," she muttered. "Shadow Ava. She'll show you." Then, without another word, she went back to scrolling on her phone. Keanu's stomach turned. He nodded and moved toward Ava, the young cashier. She looked stressed, her dark hair tied in a messy bun, her hands moving fast but shaky. Keanu took a deep breath. It was time to see the truth from behind the counter. Keanu had seen enough to know things were worse than he thought. Bad leadership, tired workers, a coffee shop that had lost its heart. But this was his company, and he wasn't going to let it rot. He had a plan, and tomorrow things are going to change. "I'm Mark," the new guy said with a small smile. Lila looked at him. Her brown eyes were careful but also kind. "Hi, Mark. I didn't know we had a new worker today," she said softly. "This place is a bit messy, but I'll help you." Keanu liked Lila right away. She had a quiet strength and a little warmth even with all the chaos around them. Lila handed him an apron and started explaining how things worked. She showed him how to use the cash register, make coffee, and help customers. As they worked, Keanu kept watching Vanessa, the manager. She stood near the counter, giving orders but not really doing anything. "Lila, hurry up," Vanessa snapped at one point. Lila was already busy helping a long line of customers. She just nodded, her jaw tight, and kept working. She was good at her job, fast, polite, and careful. But Keanu could tell she was getting tired. Then something happened that made the whole shop tense. A woman in a fancy jacket stormed up to the counter, her high heels clicking loudly. She slammed a cup down on the counter. "This is wrong," she said angrily. "I asked for a soy latte, not this sugary mess. I come here all the time. Doesn't that mean anything?" Keanu knew her type. She was the kind of customer who thought she was more important than everyone else. Lila's face went pale. She quickly reached for the cup. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'll fix it right now." Before she could do anything, Vanessa walked over. Her voice sounded fake, like she was pretending to care. "What's the problem?" Vanessa asked. The woman glared at Lila. "The problem is that your staff can't even make a simple coffee right. I don't have time for this." Vanessa turned to Lila. "What is wrong with you today?" she said loudly. People turned to watch. "You're making us look bad. Fix it and don't mess up again." Lila's face turned red. Her hands shook as she remade the drink. Keanu couldn't stay quiet anymore. "It's not her fault," he said, his voice calm. "There was a mix-up in the rush." Vanessa shot him a look that could turn milk sour. "Stay out of it, newbie," she hissed. "She's the one messing up." The fancy woman huffed, grabbed her new latte and walked away, still grumbling. Lila whispered, "Thank you," to Keanu, but Keanu knew the damage was already done. Vanessa didn't stop. She kept yelling at Lila, embarrassing her in front of customers. "If you can't handle this job, maybe you shouldn't be here," Vanessa said loudly so everyone could hear. Keanu clenched his fists in his apron pockets but didn't say anything. Instead, he pulled out a small notebook and wrote down what he saw. Vanessa blames workers for her own mistakes. Lila is overworked and has no support. His pen pressed hard into the paper. He was angry but stayed quiet. As the day went on, Vanessa's behavior got worse. She snapped at a teenage barista just for asking about her work schedule. She ignored a spilled tray of cups, letting someone else clean it up. She rolled her eyes when an old man asked for help reaching the sugar packets. Meanwhile, Lila was everywhere, wiping tables, restocking shelves, even apologizing to customers Vanessa had upset. Keanu followed Lila, pretending to learn but really watching everything. "Does Vanessa ever help?" he asked during a quiet moment. Lila hesitated. She glanced over her shoulder to check if Vanessa was listening. "Not really," she admitted. "She says her job is to manage, not to do grunt work." Keanu's stomach twisted. That wasn't managing. That was just being lazy. He wrote another note. "Vanessa does nothing. Bad for staff. Morale is low." The afternoon dragged on and things got worse. A young couple complained their coffee was cold. Vanessa told them, "Deal with it," before going back to scrolling on her phone. Lila stepped in, remaking their drinks with an apology. She looked exhausted. Vanessa just smirked, watching her struggle. Keanu's blood boiled, but he kept his cool. He asked Lila casual questions while wiping a table. "How do you keep going?" She shrugged, her voice quiet. "I need the job. My brother is in school and I help with bills. Plus, some customers are nice." Keanu nodded. He respected her even more. Lila was the heart of this place, and Vanessa was ruining it. By the end of the shift, Keanu had pages of notes. His heart burned with anger. He had seen enough. Tomorrow he will push harder. For now, he closed his notebook, the weight of what he had seen pressing down on him. Changes were coming. The next day, the lunch rush had just ended. Keanu, still undercover as Mark, wiped down a counter near Lila. His notebook was full of 2 days' worth of notes about Vanessa's terrible behavior. He had planned to wait to gather more proof. but he could feel the tension in the shop. Lila rushed between the cash register and coffee machine. She looked so tired. Vanessa? She was leaning against the wall, scrolling on her phone as usual. Keanu kept his head down, waiting for something to happen. And then it did. The door swung open and a woman walked in with a little boy holding onto her leg. She looked tired. Her coat was old and worn out. A diaper bag hung off her shoulder. The little boy whined, rubbing his eyes. She whispered to him gently, telling him it was okay. She walked up to the counter. "Can I have a small coffee?" she asked Lila, her voice polite but exhausted. Lila started to ring it up, but the boy suddenly let out a loud cry. His little face scrunched up as he started sobbing. The woman quickly crouched, whispering, "Sure, it's okay, baby." But Vanessa's head snapped up like a shark smelling blood. "Hey!" Vanessa shouted, marching over. "You need to take that noise outside. This isn't a daycare." The woman stood up, her face turning red. "I'm sorry," she said. "He's just tired. I'll calm him down. I only need a minute." Vanessa crossed her arms. "I don't care. Customers don't want to hear your kid screaming. Get out." The woman's eyes widened. A mix of shame and anger flickered across her face. "I said I'm sorry," she repeated, her voice shaking. "I just need a coffee." Keanu had seen enough. His hand gripped his notebook, his knuckles turning white. Vanessa had no idea what was coming. Keanu was cleaning tables, a rag in his hand, when he saw something bad happening. Lila, a kind worker, stepped forward. Her voice was a little shaky, but she spoke firmly. "Vanessa, it's okay. I'll take her order quickly." "She's not bothering anyone," Lila said. Vanessa, the manager, turned to Lila, her eyes full of anger. "Excuse me? You don't tell me what's okay. If you keep talking back, you'll lose your job." Lila felt scared, but she didn't back down. "She's a customer. We can't treat people like this," she said. A little boy in the shop started crying loudly. He was with his mom, a woman who looked tired and worried. Vanessa's face turned red with anger. "That's it. Both of you, out. Now," Vanessa shouted. Keanu felt his heart beat fast. He had seen enough. The mom held her son, her eyes full of tears as she turned to leave. Lila clenched her fists, her face pale with anger. Keanu knew he couldn't stay quiet anymore. "Stop," Keanu said, his voice strong but calm. Vanessa spun toward him, her lip curling. "You again? Stay out of this, newbie, or you're fired too." Keanu took a deep breath. Then he reached up and pulled off his cap. He peeled away his fake beard. He took off his glasses and set them on the counter. Everyone gasped. The customers whispered. Some pulled out their phones to take pictures. Lila's eyes went wide. Keanu Reeves stood there, not just a regular worker but the boss, the CEO of Beanhaven, the owner of all 15 coffee shops. Vanessa's face turned pale. I, she stuttered. Keanu looked straight at her. "I own this place. For 2 days I've been watching how you run things, Vanessa. And it ends now." He turned to everyone, customers and staff. "I'm sorry for what you've had to deal with. This is not what Beanhaven stands for." Then he looked back at Vanessa. "You're fired. Right now." The coffee shop went silent for a second. Then people started talking all at once. Some cheered. Others looked shocked. A worker dropped a cup on the floor. The mom near the door stood frozen, holding her son. Lila covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. Vanessa's shock turned into rage. She clenched her fists and glared at Keanu. "You can't fire me like this. I've been running this place while you sit in your fancy office," she shouted. She slammed her phone on the counter and took a step closer. "You think you can just show up, play the hero, and get rid of me? I have rights." Keanu didn't flinch. He stood tall. "You had chances to do better. But you chose to bully your staff, scare customers, and turn this shop into a mess. I own this place. I decide who stays." Vanessa laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was cold and angry. "Oh, you're such a saint, huh? Coming in disguise like some coward? You don't even know how hard it is to run this place." She grabbed her bag and shoved past Lila, making her stumble. "I'm not leaving. Call the cops if you want. I'll sue you for everything," she screamed. The shop exploded with noise. Customers yelled. Some cheered for Keanu. Others gasped. A worker ran to the back looking scared. Vanessa stomped behind the counter, knocking over cups as she went. "This isn't fair," she screamed. Keanu stepped forward. His voice was calm but strong. "Vanessa, leave now or I'll call security. This is not a debate." Vanessa grabbed a tray and threw it at him. He moved just in time. The tray clattered across the floor. Lila grabbed his arm. She's crazy. Be careful, she whispered. Vanessa's eyes burned with fury. You'll regret this, Reeves. All of you will, she yelled. She snatched her phone and ran for the door. But as she left, she pushed the single mom aside. The woman yelped, clutching her son tightly. Keanu rushed over. Are you okay? He asked. She took a deep breath and nodded. Why, thank you. The coffee shop buzzed with shock. The staff huddled together, whispering. Customers kept filming with their phones. Keanu turned to Lila. His voice was softer now. You stood up for her. That took guts. Lila wiped her eyes. I couldn't let Vanessa treat her like that. Keanu nodded. Then he faced the whole shop. Everyone stay calm. We'll fix this. His heart pounded. Vanessa was gone. But the real fight was just beginning. Beanhaven still felt shaken after Vanessa left. People whispered. Some customers slipped out quietly. The staff stood together looking unsure. Keanu took a deep breath. He had to fix this. He turned to Lila. Lila, he said. She looked at him, her hands still trembling. You've been the backbone of this shop, he said. I saw it yesterday. I saw it today. You stood up for that mother. He smiled. So, I'm promoting you. You're now assistant manager. Starting now. Lila's eyes went wide. A tear slipped down her cheek. Me? Are you sure? She whispered. Keanu nodded. I've never been more sure. You've got heart and courage. This place needs that. The other workers looked at each other. Some nodded. Others still seemed unsure. Keanu raised his voice. Vanessa is gone. She's not coming back. I let this shop fall apart and that's my fault. But starting today we're fixing it. He looked at all of them. I promise you better support, better leadership. You all deserve that. Some staff members looked hopeful. Others are still worried. Keanu continued. Tomorrow a new manager starts. Her name is Margaret. She's from our downtown shop. She's one of the best. Things are changing. Stick with me. That night, Keanu sat in his car, exhausted but determined. Vanessa was gone. Lila was lifted up. But there was still so much work to do. The next morning, Margaret arrived. She was in her 40s with short hair and a calm, confident look. She shook Keanu's hand firmly. I heard about what happened yesterday, she said. Sounds like a mess. But I've cleaned up worse. Let's get this team back on track. Keanu already liked her. Before opening, Margaret stood by the counter and faced the staff. I'm Margaret, your new manager, she said. I'm here to work with you, not boss you around. We're going to make this place better, together. Lila stood beside her, now wearing an assistant manager badge. She looked nervous but proud. The first shift with Margaret felt different. She didn't just give orders, she jumped in and worked. She poured coffee. She helped clean. Lila, still learning her new role, gave instructions carefully. She wasn't used to being in charge, but she was getting there. Keanu sat in a corner with his coffee, watching everything. This time, no disguise. Customers noticed the change. Smiles came easier. Orders moved faster. But not everyone was happy. Ryan and Emma, two workers who liked Vanessa's lazy rules, weren't on board. Ryan leaned against the counter, ignoring Margaret. Vanessa never made us work this hard, he muttered. Emma rolled her eyes. Yeah, what's with all this teamwork nonsense? Lila tried to speak. Margaret just wants to help. Ryan cut her off. You're not the boss, Lila. Don't act like it. Keanu saw everything from his table. He clenched his jaw. Vanessa was gone, but her shadow still remained. The real battle had just begun. 2 weeks had passed since Keanu came back to Beanhaven, the coffee shop he started long ago. Things were getting better. People smiled when they walked in, the yummy smell of coffee filled the air, and customers stayed longer, chatting and laughing. The coffee shop felt warm and happy again. Margaret, the new boss, was doing a great job. She was kind but also strong. When things got messy, she fixed them fast. Ava, now her helper, was also doing great. She talked to customers with a big smile, making everyone feel welcome. Keanu still came to the shop often. Before, he used to sit in a corner, wearing a cap and beard so no one knew who he was. But now he doesn't hide anymore. He sat by the window, drinking his black coffee, watching the shop come back to life. Sales were going up. The staff was working better together. Things weren't perfect yet, but they were so much better than before. Still, Keanu felt like something was wrong. One afternoon, after most customers had left, Keanu was checking his phone when a message popped up. It was from someone who worked for him. Vanessa was seen near the shop, talking to someone. Keanu's heart tightened. Vanessa? Again? He thought she was gone forever. Vanessa used to run Bean Haven before Margaret. But she made bad choices. She was mean to the workers, the coffee shop lost customers, and sales went down. That's why she got fired. Keanu looked around the shop. Everything seemed normal. Margaret was putting cups on the shelves. Ava was laughing with a customer. Nothing looked wrong. But then Keanu noticed something. Ava slipped out the side door. She held her phone tight, her face full of worry. Keanu quietly followed and peeked through the window. Outside, Ava was walking back and forth, whispering into her phone. "Vanessa, I told you I can't do this," she said. "They trust me now. Stop pushing." Keanu's chest tightened. Vanessa and Ava? Why was Ava talking to her? He waited until Ava came back inside, then he called her to the small office in the back. His voice was soft but serious. "I heard you outside. What does Vanessa want?" Ava's eyes went wide. She looked scared. "It's not. I didn't mean," she stammered. Keanu sat down and looked at her kindly. "Tell me the truth. I'm on your side." Tears filled Ava's eyes. She dropped into a chair. "Vanessa has been calling me," she said, voice shaky. "She said she'll lie about me. She'll tell people I stole money if I don't help her ruin you. I was scared. I need this job. My little brother's school fees, our rent. I can't lose this job." Keanu felt a fire of anger inside him. But he wasn't mad at Ava. He was mad at Vanessa. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked gently. Ava wiped her tears. "I thought I could handle it. I thought I could make her stop." Keanu looked at her for a moment, then nodded. "You don't have to do this alone." He called Margaret into the office. "Vanessa is harassing Ava," he told her. "We need to stop her." Margaret nodded firmly. "Then we stop her. We won't let her hurt Ava." Keanu turned back to Ava. "You're getting a raise," he said. "So you don't have to worry so much." Ava's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were happy tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I won't let you down." Keanu smiled. "You never have." That night, Keanu sat in his car, staring at the glowing coffee shop. He had almost lost everything because he wasn't paying attention. But now things are different. And saving Ava? That lit a fire in him. Bean Haven wasn't just a coffee shop. It was a home. A place for people to feel safe, to feel welcome. Keanu knew exactly what he had to do next. The next morning, Keanu stood in front of his staff, ready to tell them his plan. "We're not just fixing this shop," he said. We're making it the best coffee shop in town. No, the best in the whole chain." The workers stared at him. Some looked excited. Some looked shocked. "We're adding new food, cheaper coffee, and making sure no one is ever turned away," he continued. "If someone is hungry but doesn't have money, they still get food. We'll use part of my paycheck to pay for it." People started to murmur. Some workers even cheered. Margaret crossed her arms, smiling. "Are you serious?" Keanu grinned. "Dead serious." And so, the plan began. Keanu worked hard every day. He didn't just sit in an office. He was in the shop with everyone else. The menu changed. They added fresh pastries, cheap but delicious coffee combos, and even fun drinks for kids. More people started coming in. They put up a community board where people could pin up art, job offers, missing pets, and friendly notes. One day a man walked in. He looked tired and wore old, torn clothes. He hesitated, looking around nervously. Ava saw him and smiled. She poured him a hot coffee and slid a warm scone across the counter. "Stay as long as you want," she said. Keanu watched, feeling proud. This was what Bean Haven was meant to be. Word spread fast. Other coffee shops in the chain copied the idea, but none were as special as this one. One evening, after closing, Keanu and Ava sat at a table, looking at the glowing shop. "You did this," Ava said. Keanu shook his head. "No, we did." And then he took a deep breath. "And now it's time for me to go." Ava's eyes widened. "What?" "I started this shop," Keanu said, "but now it's yours. I don't need to run it anymore. You and Margaret? You've got this." Ava's lip trembled. "But where will you go?" Keanu looked out the window at the night sky. He felt lighter than he had in years. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'm ready to find out." And with that, Keanu stood, took one last look at his coffee shop, and walked into the night. Bean Haven was more than just a coffee shop. It was proof that kindness and fairness can change everything. Keanu didn't just save a business. He helped people. He made a place where everyone belonged. And in the end, that was worth more than anything else. Now it was your turn. How would you make the world better? Drop a comment, share your thoughts, or just take this story with you. Because kindness changes everything. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more exciting stories filled with adventure, mystery, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories coming and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.